Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
I'm Meg, also a librarian here at Mentor, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each week we talk about different books related to a specific theme. So this week's theme is something maybe a little different from what we've covered before on the show. This week we're doing graphic novels. So these are books that tell stories that also have pictures. A lot of times when people think of this, they'll think of comics, but we're here to show you today that it's not all about superheroes and it's not all comic books. These are actual real stories like what you would read in the fiction section at your library. They just have these really awesome illustrations that we're also going to show today. So.
Yes, and sometimes it's about superheroes.
Yes.
And all of the books that we have today can be acquired through the library, and a lot of them are also available online through Libby or Hoopla, which has an awesome e-comics collection.
Yes.
So Meg, what is your first graphic novel?
Yes, my first graphic novel is called Dragon Hoops by Luen Yang. And this is a really interesting, unique graphic novel all about basketball. And it's told from the perspective of the author. This is based on a true story. It takes place during the 2014-2015 basketball season at Bishop O'Dowd High School, which is in Oakland, California. And this is the high school where the author he was actually a computer programming teacher there during that year, and he did comics on the side. So he was a teacher and a comic book artist. He talks about how, as a young kid, he hated sports. But then as he's thinking about the new comic book he has to write, he overhears all the students talking about this basketball team, the O'Dowd Dragons. And he's like, this sounds like a good idea for my next story. So he takes the initial step to talk to the coach of the basketball team. His name is Lou Ritchie. And he never really talked to this teacher before. He usually would talk to his computer programming teacher friends and not really deal with all the athletic coaches and teachers. So he kind of uses that initial branching out to talk to this coach is kind of a theme for the whole book. There's an early page panel in the story where the author takes a step towards the gymnasium to meet the coach, and there's like a big step written on the page. And he uses this motif for all sorts of characters throughout the rest of the book to show one character going from something comfortable in their life to something uncomfortable and showing the positive aspects that can bring out. So it really kind of centers around his relationship with this coach that he didn't really know before. And he follows the team, the basketball team, throughout their whole season. He talks and interviews all the players and talks about all their backgrounds. And he even goes into the history of basketball, which I found interesting. I've always been a basketball fan, but I didn't know some of these historical things like James Naismith, the person who invented basketball. He'll show these little vignettes from the 1800s, which are kind of humorous to look at as well. And I just really like the moral that Gene Yang put in this, where even though Gene isn't so much of a sports fan, he could really connect with the stories from the players, and he grew to love basketball because he saw parallels between it and his own life, where in sports, even if you prepare and practice and you're really talented, a win is not always guaranteed. You have to take a risk, every time you step out onto the court. And Gene, as he shows throughout the book, it parallels his own personal life where he has to make some big decisions and there's a risk. He doesn't know whether it's going to be a successful decision or not. So I really like how he drew that in, where even if you're not a sports fan, I think you can find a lot to relate to in this book.
That's awesome. I really like Gene Luen Yang's work, and I even have a signed copy of one of his graphic novels. And I also have to say, I love that he was at a school where the mascot is the Dragons, because that is a really cool mascot.
It's perfect. Better than my Beavers, Riverside Beavers. Sorry, Beavers, I love you. But yeah.
Well, my first graphic novel is a little bit more serious, I guess. This is called The Dark Matter of Mona Starr by Laura Lee Gulledge. And this is about Mona, whose best friend Nash recently moved away to Hawaii. And so at the start of this new school year, she's feeling really alone. especially because a lot of her friends from middle school have gone to a different high school. And she's got more stuff she's struggling with. She's sort of having some pretty strong feelings and fighting off what she calls the matter, which is what she calls the dark, isolating, sad thoughts that she has, her depression and anxiety. And recently she started to see a therapist who has given her some tools to help her cope. And for a while, things start to look up for her. She starts to become closer to a former acquaintance and become friends with her. She steps out of her shell a little bit and makes friends with the new girl at school. And these things are all going really well for her, but Mona's matter is still there. And it's still causing difficulties for her, causing her to push her friends away, snap at her parents, and go to that dark place. And with the help of her friends and her family and her therapist, Mona works really hard to fight off the matter, but also to appreciate and love the person she is and not just measure herself against others around her. And I think it's a really important message. And the illustrations in this book are really captivating. The author captures the chaos that's going on in Mona's head when she is really falling into this dark spiral. And it's very overwhelming, and all these different thoughts sort of swirling around. And the images are all in black and white, except for some pops of yellow anytime Mona is seeing something that kind of leads her out of the matter or has something good happening or gives her hope. And it tackles an issue that like a lot of teens go through, or at least know a friend or a family member who have dealt with depression or anxiety. And I think that it's a great read for readers of any age. And Mona gets a lot of advice and learns some new skills that I think are valuable, especially in these stressful times, regarding like self-care and appreciation and things like that. And I think it's ultimately very uplifting at the end.
That sounds great. I haven't read that one, but you make it sound interesting. And what also I think was cool was when you mentioned the few pops of color when she was having those hopeful moments. That kind of shows the power of graphic novels, so you couldn't see that if it was just in words. Like it helps you visualize
Absolutely.
that change.
And you notice that trend throughout as
Right.
the book, as she starts to get better, you see more yellow, which is really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. So my next book is called Raven, written by Garcia and illustrated by Gabriel Picolo. And this is an interesting book, almost with a film noirish vibe about the connections between memory and identity. So the book centers around 17-year-old Rachel Roth, otherwise known as Raven, who some of you may be familiar with. She's actually a superhero character from the Teen Titans comic book series. But the cool thing about this book is you don't have to have any prior knowledge of the comics or the character to really get into the story. It's just like a really interesting mystery type story. So it starts with Raven being in a car accident with her mom. And this has two tragic consequences. One, Raven's mom dies. And then secondly, Raven loses her memory. So she has amnesia and can't really remember what happened before the accident. So as a result of this, she goes to move to New Orleans with her aunt and foster sister. And in the process, going to high school, she kind of has these frightening powers that slowly grow within her. So the first thing is she starts reading people's thoughts and hearing voices. And these can get kind of humorous sometimes. There's this cute guy at school that she likes, and then she can suddenly hear his thoughts, which is kind of funny. Has some funny moments. And then she also hears like really sad things. Like she hears students getting bullied and like the sadness associated with that. So it kind of makes her want to defend a lot of her fellow classmates, which I think is kind of cool. If you knew more about your fellow classmates, I think we'd have more empathy, which I think was a cool point. in the book. And then she kind of has these nightmares, Raven does, where it's like she's afraid that there's this evil monster in these dreams who like says you're mine. So she gets like freaked out about that. So it's kind of a cool mix between the mystery of her past, her amnesia, these nightmares, these freaky powers, with kind of the more mundane, like high school drama type stuff with school bullies and the cute guy and all that. So I like the mix of that. The art is mostly black and white. There's a cool use of shadows, but there's also cool pops of purple, and sometimes characters are in full color for different reasons. So it's kind of a unique, like figuring out why certain colors were used where. So it's kind of interesting to look at it through that. And anyone who likes superheroes, but also anyone just like those Netflix high school dramas, I think would be interested in these as well.
I like that you mentioned like the color, and I think that, like you said before, it's such an awesome way to explore in comic form. And I think like having those different things, it allows the author to emphasize different points that otherwise they may not have been able to.
Exactly.
Yeah. My next graphic novel is called Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell, illustrated by Erin Hicks, two awesome ladies, both of whom I have signed things from.
Okay, now you're just boasting, kid. I can't take it.
And Pumpkinheads actually came out last fall. And this is the perfect time to be reading this adorable graphic novel. It's perfect fall read. After I read it the first time, I was like, oh, this is something I'm going to want to sink into every fall.
Yeah.
So all through high school, Josiah, nicknamed Josie, and Deja have worked at Denok's world famous pumpkin patch and autumn jamboree. And it is a huge pumpkin patch, but it's also got like a corn maze and all sorts of different activities. And so basically it's like a fall festival. And every year they jump right back into their friendship and they have a blast together. But this year's different because they're seniors and it is their last season at the patch. And so on their last night together, Josie is feeling very nostalgic and down about everything changing, but Deja's having none of that. She has this plan that tonight they're going to go through all of their favorite things at the patch. And tonight is the night that she is going to force Josie to finally talk to the fudge girl, the girl that he has had a crush on who works at the fudge shop for 3 years. And so, of course, things don't necessarily go according to plan. There's a stolen caramel apple incident. There's an escaped goat, a lost child, and an abandoned pie stand. And a lot of interesting things happen along the way. But while they're out going through the patch, the two kind of reminisce about their time together and they think about the future because next year they're going to be at college. And they talk about what they appreciate at the pumpkin patch, what big things they're going to miss and what things they wish they could have experienced. And it's sort of that like wistful feeling of like senior year.
Yeah.
And it's in this perfect fall setting. And with all these things sort of ending, it's like the perfect senior book or book for transitioning in life, even because they have these sort of moments where there's things they're going to miss, but there's also things they're really excited about for the future. And it's got that nice balance going on. And it also kind of addresses that issue that crushes can be really awesome, but also can be really crushing in general when they don't pan out the way that you always imagine they will be. Oh, and this book invented the pumpkin bomb.
I was going to ask you about that. What is that?
Which is an amazing dessert that is 2 slices of pumpkin pie with vanilla ice cream in the middle dipped in chocolate on a stick. One of my friends last year, after reading this book, made pumpkin bombs for several of us to try, and they are much harder to eat than they look in this comic book.
Wow, yeah, no kidding. That's awesome. I want to try.
The art in this is very cool, very cute, and lots of orange and reds and yellows to
Love it.
emphasize that fall feeling.
I love it. Fall may be my favorite season, so that is just a perfect way to end it today. And I go get Pumpkinheads and get into that fall.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, so thank you guys for joining us this week of this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg. Next week, we're going to be doing a set of books about Banned Books Week, which is something we celebrate here at the library every year in September. So we'll give you more info on that, and we hope you guys have a great day.
Yep, enjoy these books and happy reading.